On the day I married Lord Alistister Bowmont in my elder sister's place. He handed me an abacus and said coldly, "The Beaumonts do not support idlers. If you wish to stay here, you will pay for your food and lodging with this abacus." Timid and cautious, I managed the household with painstaking diligence, caring for every detail, just to earn my keep. It wasn't until my sister's birthday, when he spent a fortune on a gift for her, that I finally understood. The Beaumonts were not poor, nor was he a stingy man. He was only ever miserly with me. I packed my bag and left behind a letter of divorce. Just as I was leaving, a maid came to remind me that next month's lodging fee was due. Without looking back, I said, "Tell your master that the Bowmont estate is too expensive. Allara is going to live elsewhere." The summer was scorching, the cicadas relentless. Water dripped from the eaves, pattering on the ground below. I held a green bamboo umbrella, the urn containing my mother's ashes in my bag, and walked, step by step, out of the Bowmont estate's side gate. The gatekeeper, dozing at his post, lifted an eyelid. "Does my lady require a carriage? The masters have all gone to a banquet today. Only the lesser carriages are available. Half a tally stick will suffice." I shook my head and declined. Why take a carriage when I wasn't coming back? I heard someone spit behind me, muttering, "Penniless." My heart was calm. I was already contemplating whether it was better to take a boat to Fujo or travel with a merchant caravan. The servants' behavior was merely a reflection of their masters. Alistister disliked me, so they treated me like a freeloader. Though not a servant myself, I had endured my share of their scorn. After some thought, I decided to visit the merchant guilds first. My mother had never been on a boat. I feared she might get seasick, even in the afterlife. The streets of the capital were bustling. Even the beggars were bold enough to ply their trade at the city bridge. I was naturally cautious and spent a few coins to learn of a reputable porcelain merchant who would soon be traveling and would pass through Fujo. His shop was next to the famous Vanloo Tavern. Compared to the grandeur of the tavern, the shop was rather plain. I was haggling with the shopkeeper when I heard a familiar voice. "Has the kingfisher feather headdress been delivered to the Ashton estate?" It was Alistister. I looked up to see him emerging from the tavern, dressed in moon-white brocade, a jade pendant at his waist. A smile played on his handsome face. His attendant bowed. "Of course, my lord. Lady Isabel was delighted. It is just that your wife was also present, and she did not look pleased. Perhaps you should explain things to her." Another young man, fanning himself, chimed in. "To spend a fortune for a beautiful woman's smile is a romantic tale. What does it matter if your wife objects? Surely, Lord Bowmont, you are not afraid of your wife?" Alistair's fine brows furrowed, the smile fading from his lips. "She eats my food and lives under my roof. What right has she to object? Besides, Isabel is her elder sister. She should be more generous." I stood frozen in the shop for a long time. Few people remembered that my sister and I shared a birthday, born on the same day nearly at the same hour. But the firstborn daughter of the official wife always held a higher status. My father had declared Isabel the elder, and so she was. She was spoiled, raised in a cocoon of luxury. For me, with my large appetite, even a full stomach was a luxury. My mother was frail and had lost my father's favor after my birth. Her monthly allowance was spent on medicine, leaving nothing for the kitchen staff. My mother was a gentle, skilled woman, who would often sew me hair ornaments from scraps of cloth. Once my sister saw one and snatched it from my hand. We argued. She wailed, and my father's bamboo cane fell upon my back. My stepmother said nothing, only gave me a cold look. I knew I had done something wrong, but I didn't know what. When I returned to my courtyard, my usually loving mother made me kneel outside for hours. In the bitter cold, her voice trembling, she stroked my wounds, her tears soaking my clothes. "Allara, remember this. You must never fight with others for things. Your mother is useless. I cannot protect you." From then on, I learned to yield. But life only grew harder. It was around that time that Alistister Bowmont began to frequent our home. Once, he happened upon me arguing with a cruel servant. Perhaps it was youthful chivalry, or perhaps just a whim. In any case, he had the servant dealt with. I was like a creature of the shadows, secretly watching as he took my sister to fly kites, a seed of envy planted in my heart. I never dreamed that one day, that handsome young man would be my husband. At that time, a new emperor had just ascended the throne. The Beaumonts had backed the wrong side. Their title was demoted, and the once vibrant young Lord Beaumont fell from his horse, crippling his legs. My father valued his reputation above all else. He would not break the engagement, but neither would he send his precious daughter to suffer. So he thought of me. For the first time, I saw a look of fatherly affection on his stern face. It was as false as a puppet's mask. "Allara is a woman grown," he sighed. "It is time she was married." My stepmother patted my hand. "I know you are a dutiful daughter. You would want to see your own mother live a better life, wouldn't you? If you agree to marry into the Beaumont family and behave yourself, your mother's medical expenses will be paid from the public accounts." I agreed soon after. In an ill-fitting wedding dress, with a meager dowry of 10 chests, I became Alistister Beaumont's wife. On our wedding night, he flew into a rage, smashing the ceremonial candles and wine cups. "Ha! Your Ashton family has some nerve, fobbing me off with an illegitimate daughter. You get to keep your reputation, and I get to support a freeloader. What a fine bargain." I lowered my head in shame. For my mother's sake, I had to stay. I can do anything. I won't be a freeloader." He thought for a moment, then took an abacus from a shelf, his eyes full of scorn. "Very well. The Beaumonts do not support idlers. If you wish to stay here, you will pay for your food and lodging with this abacus. 1 tally stick for a meal and 2 nights' lodging. Even the cloth for my monthly needs had to be bartered for. The clothes I wove and the shoes I made were worth nothing. Only by managing the household to his satisfaction would he grant me a few extra sticks. But no matter how I calculated, I was never full. In the winter, my hands and feet were numb with cold. I didn't have enough tally sticks for charcoal and had to beg him for an advance. He neither agreed nor refused, only smiled. "I have seen many women like you. No backbone, yet you insist on putting on a brave face." He then casually wrote a letter of divorce. "If you would return home, I would send you 100 baskets of charcoal." I silently took the letter. What use was backbone when my mother needed medicine? I endured several winters like that, if not for the long silence from my mother, if not for seeing him gift my sister a headdress worth a fortune, if not for the unbearable humiliation at the banquet. The thought of leaving might never have crossed my mind. The porcelain merchant was to depart at dawn the next day. The caravan was large, the delicate wares carefully packed in padded frames. "Keep your hands to yourselves," the caravan leader warned. "Touch what isn't yours, and you'll have me to answer to." My funds were low, so I offered to cook for the caravan in exchange for a reduced fare. "Alas with your skills," one of the men joked. "You'll have no trouble finding a handsome husband." The journey was not without its troubles, but the bandits we encountered were easily dispatched. We even saw a troop of cavalry on the main road, riding with a grim purpose. I saw landscapes I had never seen before, and the weight on my heart began to lift. I thought of Alistister less and less. We reached Fujo in mid-September. The caravan leader gave me a small porcelain cup as a parting gift. Not valuable, but a kind gesture. I found my mother's ancestral village was only accessible by boat. 2 coins, 2 coins, last trip of the day. An old man on a small boat called out. Halfway across the water, the boat jolted. "There is someone in the water," the old man cried. A man in black robes, his face obscured by his dark hair, floated in the water. I could see the glint of chainmail beneath his robes, the kind worn by the king's generals. "Save him!" I cried. "I'll pay extra!" The old village would have to wait. I carried the unconscious man to the nearest clinic. The doctor, a white-haired old man, took one look at him and began to scold me. "You foolish girl. Why did you wait until your husband was at death's door to bring him here?" I blushed. "He is not." Cough, cough. The man on the bed opened his eyes, grabbed my hand, and murmured, Mother, don't leave Allaric. So, you are his stepmother, the doctor exclaimed, his mind racing. The world has gone mad. I could only sigh. I scratched his palm in frustration. I didn't see the flicker of his eyelashes. Back at the Bowmont estate, Alistister returned to an empty courtyard. "Illara Ashton," he called, as he always did. But there was no answer. Usually she would be there with a warm drink, his change of clothes laid out. "Go and see if my lady has returned from the Ashton estate," he ordered a servant. The gatekeeper reported back. "My lady returned for a short while, then left again. She didn't even take a carriage. Perhaps she didn't have enough tally sticks," the accounting maid added. "She refused to pay for next month's lodging," she said. "The Bowmont estate is too expensive, and she is going to live elsewhere." Alistister snorted. "Is she trying to spite me? Where else can she go? The Ashtons won't take her back." He was annoyed. Let her suffer a bit at her family's home, he thought. Then she'll understand that her husband is the only one who truly cares for her. He didn't notice the letter on the dressing table. His old leg injury ached that night. Usually, Allara would massage it for him. Now, the bed felt empty and a strange hollowness echoed in his heart. 2 days later, he softened. "Take a carriage to the Ashton estate and wait for her," he told his attendant. No, tally sticks required this time. But he didn't know that Allara was never coming back. I stayed in Fujo for over a month, until Allaric's injuries began to heal. My meager savings were nearly gone. "Lord Allaric," I grumbled as I ground herbs, "you had better repay me tenfold for this medicine." "Of course, my dear Allara," he said with a smile. "But as you can see, I don't have a single coin. Only these worthless bones. Will you accept them as payment?" He was infuriatingly charming. He told me his name and his age, but nothing of his background. When he recovered, he would spend hours drawing strange symbols and numbers in the dirt, muttering about formulas. In my spare time, I would weave small trinkets from grass or carve little mechanisms from wood. Skills my mother had taught me. Allaric was always amazed. "Illara, you are a genius," he would exclaim. "In another time, you could have been an inventor." What was an inventor? I didn't know, but the praise felt as sweet as honey cake. Allaric had a deep gash on his back. I couldn't afford a nurse, so I tended to it myself. At least he wasn't as fussy as Alistister, who demanded his cloths be sterilized and would complain if my touch was too rough. The man looked thin, but his muscles were well defined. In the candlelight, sweat would bead on his brow and trickle down his neck. He would turn his head, his ears red, and urge me on. "Illara, are you done yet? Illara, could you be faster? Illara, if you don't finish soon, I might not make it." For some reason, my usual good temper vanished around him. I would pat his back firmly. "Be patient." One night, he turned his head suddenly. I realized how close we were. His warm breath tickled my nose. "You..." I pushed him, but he didn't budge. He chuckled, his eyes bright. "I know what I can teach you." "What?" I asked, dazed. "Glass," he said, pulling his robes around him. "I will teach you to make glass. That will earn you plenty of money for medicine." Strangely, I found myself not wanting him to pay me back so quickly, but the idea of making glass fascinated me. In those days, glass was a rare import, its price exorbitant. I had heard Alistister boast of a glass-making business that earned him a fortune each year. Allaric said he only had the formula. The execution was up to me. I liked the feeling of being trusted. We failed many times, but he never grew impatient. "There is plenty of time," he would say. "My Illara is the cleverest girl in the world." Alistister would never have said such things. He would only have mocked me for being a freeloader. Finally, one morning, from the crucible emerged a piece of clear, flawless glass. A small glass cup, refracting a rainbow of colors in the sunlight. "Allaric!" I cried, running to him. He turned from the stove, carefully washed his hands, and took the cup. A token of your love. I accept. He then tucked it into his sleeve. I stared. I never said that. He dampened a handkerchief and gently wiped the soot from my face. You have seen my body, eaten my cooking, and now you give me a treasure. Am I wrong in any of this? He had emphasized the word body. I blushed. He leaned in and bit my lip gently. Silly Allara. I told you long ago, I have already given myself to you. The stars were bright that night. I listened to the beating of my own heart and decided, for once, to be selfish. Allaric, I said, stroking his jaw. I have been married before. I would not deceive him. You can leave now. I know, he said calmly. You simply had the misfortune of meeting a terrible person. Should I hold that against you? No, my Allara. If anything, I am to blame for not finding you sooner. He pulled me into his arms. I cannot tell you my identity just yet, but my parents are gone, and I have only one elder brother. I have already written to him, asking him to prepare the betrothal gifts to welcome you. Tears fell from my eyes. I wiped them on his sleeve. I don't need any gifts. Just buy a pair of wedding candles tomorrow. I will sew my own veil. That was all Allara wanted. A year later, at the Fujo docks, Lord Alistister Bowmont, pale and wrapped in a fox fur cloak, stepped off a passenger boat. The glass from Fujo had become famous, turning his own lucrative business to dust. He had heard from a porcelain merchant that Allara Ashton might be here, and so he had come himself. He intended to buy the glass formula and monopolize the trade. He heard it was being sold by a young commoner couple. If they refused, well, there were other methods. He arrived at the House of Glass to find it more crowded than the Fanlu Tavern, and then he saw her. Her face was fuller, with 2 small dimples, her eyes bright as she ran toward him. Husband, was she so happy to see him? In that instant, Alistair's anger vanished. Very well, he thought. I will pretend I never saw the letter of divorce. I will even give her more tally sticks when we return. But Allara ran past him, like a joyful bird straight into the arms of another man. What took you so long? I asked, inhaling the scent of cedar from Allaric's robes. We sold nearly 1,000 taels worth today. Allaric brushed a leaf from my shoulder. My Allara is the cleverest girl in the world. My brother sent men to find me. It took some time to send them away. A furious voice cut in from behind them. Allara Ashton, look closely. Who is your husband? Alistair's eyes were red with rage. He lunged for me, for a moment. I was stunned. He was here, but my mother was at peace. Who my husband is has nothing to do with you. Divorce. Alistair's teeth were clenched. I never agreed. It is not valid. Are you still angry about a birthday gift? Come, let us go home. I will forgive your past behavior. Allaric stepped forward, but I stopped him. I can handle this. I am not angry with you, I told Alistister. It is just that tally sticks were hard to earn, and it was too cold to get up at night for medicine, and I no longer wish to fawn over you like a little dog. The Bowmont estate was never my home. What kind of home requires you to pay for your lodging? You are free to propose to my sister now. Panic flickered in his eyes. I never intended to marry Isabel. He reached for my sleeve. Allara, let me explain. Allaric had had enough. He slapped Alistair's hand away, a cold smile on his face. Lord Bowmont, it has been some time. Did you hear what my wife said? She is a reasonable woman. I am not. I stared. My ex-husband and my current husband seemed to be acquainted. You never told me, I whispered to Allaric. He looked down at me gently. I didn't want you to worry. Get out of my way, Alistair started. Then he saw Allaric's face. He froze. Prince Allaric? You were supposed to be... How are you here? Allaric took my hand possessively. Thanks to my wife's diligent care, I have managed to survive. Where she is, I am. A husband and wife should not be parted. Still reeling from the revelation of his identity, I nodded dumbly. Yes, that is right. The shop is busy, my dear. Shall we? My jealous husband couldn't resist a parting shot. He clapped Alistair on the shoulder. By the way, I must thank you, Lord Bowmont. for your lack of judgment." Alistair stood there, his face ashen, and watched us walk away. That evening, we bought our usual pastries and meat pies for dinner. All the way home, I was bursting with questions. Allaric seemed unfazed by the encounter. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, as he opened the gate to our courtyard. I sighed. "How can you be Prince Allaric? Even I had heard of him. The new emperor was his full brother, more than 10 years his senior, and they were said to be very close. Would the emperor allow his brother to marry a divorced woman? The thought saddened me. Allaric sighed back. "Can't a prince have a wife? I don't want to be a concubine." My mother's life of quiet desperation was not one I wished to repeat. He flicked my forehead gently. "I have no intention of taking any concubines. And don't worry about my brother. If he disapproves, I'll just go and become a monk for a while." What? Could he do that? He set the food on the table with none of the airs of a prince. "Once we have settled things at the House of Glass, we will return to the capital and finalize your divorce." For now, food was more important. I devoured a meat pie, pushing all my worries aside. He wanted to marry me. It was his problem to solve. After dinner, as I was happily counting the day's earnings, Allaric swept me into his arms. "Your worries are settled. Now it is time to settle mine." I saw then, in his dark eyes, that he was not as calm as he had appeared. I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him. "Just once, all right?" The next morning, I awoke to find him at a small desk, writing furiously, still undressed. My waist ached from his enthusiasm the night before. I kicked him playfully. He caught my ankle and began to massage it. "You wouldn't lift your legs last night, and now you do. You said just once. You lied. A gentleman keeps his word. Fortunately for you, I am not a gentleman." I tried to pull away, but he drew me closer, draping my leg over his shoulder. "It is still early again," I whimpered, and prayed that Alistair Bowmont would not appear again. But he did. Every day, I would feel his eyes on me at the House of Glass. He even sent his attendant with a letter. "My lady, since you left, my lord has been searching for you everywhere. His leg injury has flared up, and he hasn't smiled once." It was a plea for pity. I am no longer his lady, nor am I a physician. He should see a doctor. Perhaps not smiling is a symptom of some illness. I finally took the letter. It was full of nonsense about how a prince could never marry a divorced commoner. Had he ever been good to me? Occasionally, when he was in a good mood, he would buy me a hairpin, or have the kitchen make extra pastries. But it was the kind of careless kindness one shows to a wagging puppy. He had made no great mistake. I simply no longer wished to live a life of constant submission and hunger. I threw the letter into a brazier and watched it burn. Alistair, who had been watching from afar, came forward, his jaw tight. "You are my wife. I will not let you go." I pointed to the door of the shop and smiled. "Be on your way." Fujo was close to the southern border where the local tribes had grown restless. Allaric had been investigating their collusion with court officials when he was nearly killed. That troop of cavalry I had seen was searching for him. To continue his investigation, he had faked his own death. The scoundrel had even kept it from me. 2 days later, a troop of black-armored guards appeared outside our courtyard. It was time to go. I looked around the small yard, at the pear tree just beginning to bear fruit, at the jar of wine buried at its roots. Allaric laughed. "Silly Alara, it is not as if we're never coming back." I packed only my glass-making hammer and my handsome new husband, and we set off for the capital. "What? You want a divorce?" At the Ashton estate. My father stood in the hall, his finger trembling as he pointed at me. "You shameless girl! You have brought disgrace upon this family." "Not want, father. Have. Isabel could get a divorce. Why can't I?" My sister had married a marquis shortly after I had left. The man had turned out to be a degenerate, caught with a page boy in his study. Isabel, with her proud nature, had divorced him immediately. "You!" My father raised his hand to strike me. Two of the guards Allaric had left with me stepped forward. "Lord Ashton, do not lay a hand on our mistress." My stepmother clutched her chest. "This is madness. Send someone to the Bowmonts at once. See if this can be salvaged." "Mother?" I said, feigning confusion. "Speaking of which, I nearly forgot to ask. You and Father promised to care for my mother, to provide her with medicine and a doctor. How is it, then, that she died alone and uncared for? They wanted me to stay quietly with the Bowmonts, yet they wouldn't offer even the smallest kindness. At my sister's birthday banquet, an old servant who had been kind to my mother had secretly told me the truth. My mother had died shortly after I was married. The old woman had saved her ashes for me." Isabel arrived, a sneer on her face. "So, little sister, you've finally left your gilded cage, or did Lord Bowmont tire of you?" The kingfisher headdress was still in her hair smack. One of my guards slapped her. "Insolence toward our mistress will not be tolerated." Isabel shrieked and lunged at me. "You little bastard! You dare have me struck!" Now her cheeks were symmetrical. I flexed my hand. "I don't just have people hit you. I do it myself." When my father and stepmother tried to intervene, they received the same treatment. The household guards were no match for my two skilled protectors. Allaric's men were very useful indeed. Back in the capital, Allaric and I went our separate ways for a time. He went to the Emperor to present his evidence. I went to the Ashtons to make my divorce official. I returned to the remote courtyard. My mother and I had shared. It was dusty and neglected. As I lay down to sleep, I heard a noise. It was Allaric, climbing over the wall. He was exhausted. He slipped into bed and held me. "My dear Allara, just wait for me for 2 more days. My brother has agreed. As soon as the matter of the tribes is settled, he will issue the decree for our marriage." "Really?" I kissed him happily. "Then you must come and fetch me quickly." The next morning, I went on a rampage, packing all of Isabel's valuable ornaments into my own trunks as a dowry. My father, obsessed with his reputation, refused to seek outside help. The next day, I took his prized inkstone and several valuable paintings. He finally snapped. He summoned the clan elders. "I will have this unnatural daughter struck from the family records." In the ancestral hall, the elders stroked their beards and looked at my sister and me with disapproval. "A divorced daughter brings shame upon the clan. And there are 2 of you. Send them to a nunnery," one suggested. "No need," I said. "My father has spoken. It would be unfilial to disobey." My father nearly choked. The elders sighed and brought out the family registry. Just as they were about to strike my name, a servant burst in. "My lord, my lady, Prince Allaric is here. He has come to propose marriage." The entire hall froze. "To our house?" my father stammered. "Yes, the betrothal gifts are already being brought in." "Excellent," the elders beamed. "A princess from our clan. Go and inform the ancestors." I smiled. Not from their clan anymore. "Who is the bride?" an elder asked. My stepmother pushed a blushing Isabel forward. "Our Isabel, of course. I remember the prince showing her special favor at a banquet once." "Did he?" Isabel shot me a triumphant look. "Watch me marry in splendor, little sister. The mud in the pond can never compare to the lotus." "We shall see," I replied. We all went to the front hall. Allaric stood there, magnificent in a purple robe embroidered with dragons. He caught my eye and smiled. Isabel curtsied demurely. "Your Highness." He ignored her and unrolled a golden imperial scroll. "A match made in heaven. It is hereby decreed that Allara of the former House of Ashton shall be wed to Prince Allaric." A collective gasp went through the room. All eyes turned to me. I stood and took the scroll. "Let us go," I said to Allaric. "I am no longer of the Ashton clan." He nodded and ordered his men to take the betrothal gifts and my newly acquired dowry to his residence. "Wait!" Isabel shrieked, grabbing his sleeve. "You must have misread. I am the one fit to be a princess. Allara is just a lowly commoner." A severed fingertip fell to the floor, followed by her scream. Allaric sheathed his sword. "I will not hear another word spoken against my wife," he said. and led me away. That evening, he brought out a small wooden box. "How do you have the wooden kite I made as a child?" I asked, astonished. "It was a gift," he explained. "Years ago, when the Beaumonts fell from favor, your ex-husband sent me many treasures, hoping I would speak to my brother on his behalf. I kept only this. I thought the maker of such a thing must be a brilliant man. I thought it was him. So that was why Alistister had always been so generous with his tally sticks whenever I made a new toy. He was taking credit for my work." I thought about it, then asked Allaric, "Does one need to pay with tally sticks to live in the prince's residence?" "I am not so stingy." He handed me a jade tablet. "This is the key to the treasury. Spend as you wish. Where my treasure is, there my heart is also." I smiled. "And what would you like in return?" He looked at me. His eyes soft. "Favoritism. There is already one person here who thinks you are brilliant. For the rest of your life, Allara, can you be a little biased toward me?" "All right." Epilogue: 5 years later, the southern tribes rebelled. The emperor was furious, and a number of corrupt officials were punished. The Beaumonts were among them. Not sentenced to death, but exiled 3,000 miles away. Alistister, desperate to restore his family's honor, had resorted to illegal means, selling armor to the tribes. As his prison carriage left the city, Allaric and I were returning with our young daughter. I saw him in the distance. The once proud lord, now a broken man in chains, fighting with the woman he had married after me. Our paths had diverged completely. My husband, Allaric, had a brilliant mind but was clumsy with his hands. I was the opposite. Together we created many new inventions, which we gave to the court to sell, splitting the profits. Coincidentally, many of Alistair's businesses failed as a result. The emperor, who had no daughters of his own, adored our little girl, Annalise. At first, he hadn't been fond of me, but after I presented him with one useful invention after another, his displeasure shifted to Alistister. He irrationally blamed him for holding me back. I never told him that without Allaric, none of it would have been possible. Allaric had a secret, but I didn't care. In this life, it is sometimes better not to know. Alaric's epilogue: I had a secret, but I never told Allara. I was born with memories of a past life before I met her. I had no home. It was she who pulled me from the darkness. Later, I learned of her past with that Bowmont fellow. It didn't matter, though I admit to a certain amount of jealousy. I knew she was a pearl, and I polished her until she shone. My brother was furious when I said I would marry a divorced woman. "There are so many fine women in the world," he had roared. "She is the only one for me," I had replied. "Then I refuse," so I threatened to become a monk. He relented. He had intended to pass the throne to me one day, but I never wanted it. All I wanted was a small home with Allara. Years later, when our hair was white, I asked her, "If you had to do it all over again, would you still have saved me?" She was eating a sweet cake, a smile on her face. "Of course," she said. "I recognized the armor you were wearing. A man in that same armor once saved me from a drunkard when I was a little girl sneaking out to buy medicine for my mother. So, some fates are written in the stars." Alistair's epilogue: I never thought I would lose Allara Ashton. I disliked her at first. It was an insult, being sent an illegitimate daughter after my fall from grace. The abacus was just a way to vent my frustration, but she took it seriously, and she accepted all my ill temper. I was a picky eater, but I could always eat her cooking. My leg injury required constant care, and she tended to it day and night. She was like a soft piece of dough, never pushing back. I grew accustomed to her. I often wonder, if I hadn't given Isabel that headdress, would she have stayed? I only did it to show off, to make her regret her choice. But Allara left without a backward glance. I thought she was just angry that she would come back. Where else could she go? But then I found the letter of divorce I had written myself. Only then did I realize how deeply I had disappointed her. When I saw her again, she was married to a prince. I was filled with regret and bitterness. I drank to numb the pain. I married Isabel, and we made each other miserable. When we were exiled, I finally understood what it was to be hungry. My leg ached constantly, and there was no one to care for me. I died on the road to exile, my body eaten by wild dogs. My soul drifted upward, and I saw her one last time. She looked up and called, "Husband." Allaric asked her what she wanted for dinner. "Bath!" she cried. Their laughter faded into the distance, and I was laid to rest, far from home.